Chapter 827. Nangong Firen's profound rank was above the earth profound rank. In the Nirvana realm he could be considered a high-level profound practitioner at his age. However, he was completely powerless against the 5 corpse puppets with just this bit of ability. The only reason he could hold on for such a long time was because of the long sword in his hand. The long sword should be a weapon above the supreme level and had been stained with the aura of talismans. When the sword swept past the corpse puppets, they would subconsciously avoid the longsword's attack. When the long sword slashed the black robe of one of the corpse puppets, the black robe immediately emitted a puff of green smoke, revealing half of the white bone under the black robe. However, even with the protection of the long sword, it was hard for him to avoid being injured by the 5 corpse puppets by himself when fighting them alone. After the last mercenary crossed the bonfire, he had just heaved a sigh of relief when his arm was cut by the white bone of one of the corpse puppets. Nangong Firen moved quickly. Enduring the sharp pain of his arm being corroded, he raised his sword and swung it. The corpse puppet quickly retracted its white bone. The fragrance of human blood wafted from the corroded arm. The other 4 corpse puppets howled crazily, and a bloodthirsty red light flashed under their black robes. They swarmed toward Nangong Firen in unison. Nangong Firen's heart sank. He glanced sideways at his bleeding arm and vaguely saw his white bone. A chilly yin qi spread from the wound on his arm to his body. As the corpse puppets approached, Nangong Firen wanted to raise his sword to repel them. However, the chilly yin qi made him feel cold all over, and his fingers holding the long sword stiffened. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move his arm. The increasingly intense yin qi was assaulting his face. Nangong Firen closed his eyes in despair. Forget it. It's worth it if I can let my brothers survive by sacrificing myself. At this moment he suddenly felt a grip on his arm. Nangong Firen felt as if something had wrapped around his body. His body suddenly became light and he was pulled by a force. Big brother. Nangong Lin's sobbing voice rang in his ears. Immediately after, a pair of ice-cold hands directly grabbed his arm. The woman's cold voice rang out, "Don't touch him. Get out of the way." Nangong Firen opened her eyes and saw a pair of emotionless eyes. Those eyes were pitch black and bright, like the resplendent stars in the sky. The corners of his eyes were long and narrow, revealing an extremely enchanting and evil charm. As it spun, it gave off a dazzling flowing light. The streak of light shot into Nangong Firen's heart. For some unknown reason, his heart was beating rapidly, uncontrollably. Even his breathing became stagnant. "Don't you dare touch my brother. You wicked woman. You could have used these silver threads to pull my brother over, but you had to wait until he was injured and on the verge of death before bringing him over. You're trying to kill my brother." Nangong Lin cried and hugged Nangong Firen's waist tightly. Her tearful eyes stared at the corroded wound on his arm with fear, and her tears fell even harder. Yiqing Luo didn't have such a good temper. At this juncture she still allowed her to throw a little tantrum. Yiqing Luo directly clasped Nangong Lin's shoulder and easily pulled her up, throwing her towards Yifeng Ru's direction. "If I had pulled your brother over earlier, your brother's intention of using his own life to fight for time for you to escape would have been wasted." Yiqing Luo's tone was icy cold, as her ridiculing gaze swept past the Azura God Group's mercenaries who were standing by the side with lingering fear, as her lips curled into a cold arc. Chapter 828. When the Death God Group's mercenaries heard that, their faces flushed red as they lowered their eyelids in guilt. Earlier, when their lives were on the line, all they were thinking about was how to survive. They had sufficient time to use the silver thread to cross that pile of raging fire because their group leader had sacrificed his own life to fight for time for them. Luckily, Yiqing Luo made a move at the last moment. Yiqing Luo didn't have the leisure to watch the Death God mercenary group put on a show of brotherly love. She directly took out a medicine bottle and threw it into Xianxia's hands as she commanded in a deep voice. "The smell of blood not only stimulates the corpse puppets, it will also attract the corpse worms. Help him stop the bleeding and expel the corpse qi that has entered his body after avoiding the corpse puppets." Xianxia caught the medicine bottle as her slender brows creased tightly, not liking Yiqing Luo's commanding tone. Just as she was about to retort, she saw Yiqing Luo turning her head over and the red feather fan in her hands seemed to have merged into one with the raging fire, dancing in joy on her slender jade-like fingertips. Those few silver threads which were inserted into the rock wall speedily retracted back into the feather fan. Xianxian's words could only be kept in her throat. Clenching her teeth, she squatted down and started to bandage Nangong Firen's wound to stop the bleeding. Those 5 corpse puppets saw all their targets and had already crossed that ball of raging fire as they howled and charged over. Yiqing Luo used the silver threads to swiftly weave a 5-elemental enchantment on both sides of the rock wall. Following that, she took out a round oil lamp and threw it into that pile of fire as she shouted at the same time, "Run!" Although Yiqing Luo was only a copperplate mercenary group's vice group leader. But at this moment she had already become everyone's backbone. Yiqing Luo gave her command and everyone speedily turned around and ran without any hesitation. 5 corpse puppets flew forward and 5 skeletons crashed against the silver threads which had formed the enchantment, blocking them. The corpse puppets howled a few times as their ghastly white bones directly grabbed onto the silver threads. Coincidentally, the round oil lamp which Yiqing Luo threw entered the pile of fire. With a rub, the fire surged and directly burned to the highest point of the rock wall. The endless flames swallowed the 5 corpse puppets. After Yiqing Luo threw the oil lamp, she immediately turned around and displayed her smooth footwork, speedily chasing up to the others. Seeing Yiqing Luo following up, Long Yunzhan and the others who were running at the back were relieved. "Is he dead?" Qiao Jin turned his head over and asked Yiqing Luo. The other mercenaries strained their ears to listen as they ran. Yiqing Luo shook her head lightly. "High-leveled corpse puppets aren't afraid of ordinary flames burning. God Thief said this before, this kind of high-leveled corpse puppets have no weaknesses at all." "Then what should we do?" A trace of fear appeared on Wei Bei's handsome face, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. "Are we really going to die here today? As an executive group leader, every word you say is related to the mercenaries' psychological state changes." Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Wei Bei's face darkened and he immediately shut his mouth. This woman was indeed smart and capable. But his mouth, and his arrogant attitude was really annoying. Yiqing Luo didn't care about unimportant people's thoughts. She retracted her thoughts as her gaze searched around for a way to avoid the corpse puppets. If they were chased by the corpse puppets, they would appear extremely passive. There was no preparation or chance for them to counterattack. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as her mind kept replaying the places which they had passed by along the way. Even the details of the gravel, vines and moss were clearly reflected in his mind. Chapter 829. The place which Yiqing Luo had chosen was exactly that stone wall which had Duke Ling's totem. The head of King Ling on the stone wall was the mechanism of the stone wall. As long as he grasped this, he would have enough time to expel the corpse qi from Nangong Firen's body. The group sprinted all the way and before long they arrived at the stone wall. Yiqing Luo asked the mercenaries to return to the middle layer of King Ling's tomb, and when she turned her head to take a look, she didn't see any corpse puppets chasing after them. She let out a sigh of relief. High-level corpse puppets were not afraid of fire. However, the corpse puppets were still affected. At the very least, the 5 corpse puppets would not be able to break free from the burning flames for a while. Yiqing Luo was the last to cross over the stone wall, as she speedily pressed on the stone wall. Another deafening rumbling sound rang out, and the stone door that had been opened slowly closed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. At this moment he couldn't care less about the slippery vines and the moss that made his hair stand on end. Xianxia helped Nangong Firen to sit against the rock wall. Yiqing Luo didn't waste any time as she walked straight to Nangong Firen's side and squatted down as she pulled up his arm which had been corroded by the corpse puppet. It felt extremely cold to the touch. The slightest touch was like touching ice. It was bone-chilling. Yiqing Luo's expression turned grave as she carefully sized up Nangong Firen's face. Nangong Firen closed her eyes tightly. A thin layer of cold air seeped out of her forehead, and her eyelashes were covered with a layer of white frost. The corners of his eyes were already covered with a patch of greenish-black. The situation was more serious than he had imagined. "Lass, you have to expel the corpse qi for him as soon as possible." Old Man Song's urging voice rang in his ears. "If the corpse aura pervades his heart and corrodes his profound heart jade, then he'll be hopeless." Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. As for the method to expel corpse qi, she had never dabbled in it. It was just that when he was reading the information about the Ling King's tomb last night, he had also thought about the problem of corpse qi. At that time he only asked Old Man Song about a simple method to prevent the corpse qi from entering his body, but he didn't delve too deeply into it. At this moment she could only listen to Old Man Song's instructions. Yiqing Luo flipped her palm and the red feather fan slid into her palm. She gripped the fan handle tightly and with a flick of her finger, a sharp dagger slid out. She lifted Nangong Firen's arm and was about to cut his wound with the dagger. However, Xianxia grabbed his arm. "What are you doing? Let go." Yiqing Luo knitted her brows and looked at her coldly with a displeased expression. "I really doubt the real strength of the gold medal mercenary group." Her tone was full of disdain and mockery. "Ever since we entered the tomb of the Ling King, your death god mercenary group has caused trouble time and time again. You've dragged down our operation and become a burden on me." "What did you say?" Xianxia was so angry that her beautiful face turned red. Her pair of cold eyes were filled with anger. Yiqing Luo gave a light humph. "What I'm saying, you know it clearly in your hearts. If I had known that you were a bunch of trash, I would never have signed that deal with you." These words were completely undisguised disdain for the god-slaying mercenary group. The World Mercenary Group's mercenaries were secretly delighted. They all gave their vice group leaders' words 32 big thumbs up in their hearts. From the start to the end, the god-slaying mercenary group had always placed themselves in a high and mighty position. As though accompanying them into the bottom level of the Ling King's tomb was a condescending act. But in actual fact, the god-slaying mercenary group's performance was totally an existence of a burden. Not only did they not have any practical use, they even kept on creating trouble which caused people to die one after another. Chapter 830. The underlying meaning was that if Xianxia still wanted to stir up any trouble, she wouldn't bother about the death god mercenary group's life or death. Xianxia's back instantly felt a chill, and when he met Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes, he felt as though something was strangling his neck, making it hard for him to breathe. Perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's words which made Xianxia sense the seriousness of the situation. Or perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's imposing manner which suppressed Xianxia so much that he had no way to resist. Xianxia's hand stiffly released Yiqing Luo's wrist as he took half a step back. The expression on his beautiful face was congealed and stiff. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze as the blade speedily cut the wound on Nangong Firen's arm, which had already stopped bleeding. The medicinal powder which stopped the bleeding was swiftly dissolved and cleaned up. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she directly cut the wound even bigger. Blood started to gush out immediately. The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with terror. Wandering on the blade's edge for several decades, they had experienced all sorts of dangerous missions. But they had never done such a strange mission. They could kill any demon, magical beast or mirage beast without any expression. But unfortunately, this time round they were facing a ghost. For these mercenaries to reach their current position, whose hands weren't stained with blood. Naturally, he was extremely afraid of this kind of thing. Especially the fear which the corpse puppets and worms brought to them had already seeped deep into their bones. Looking at Yiqing Luo's agile actions, no one went up to stop her. At this moment, Long Yunzhan's icy cold eyes swept past everyone without any warmth as he spoke calmly. "Do a head count." Qiao Jin and the others responded and started to count the number of people. After around half an incense's time, the few of them counted the number of people. The World Mercenary Group has a total of 96 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently there are 96 people left and 3 of them have some external injuries. Death God Mercenary Group has a total of 37 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently there are 13 people left and 5 injured. When the head count was done, the Death God Mercenary Group's mercenaries' faces flushed red. Even Xianxia, who had his eyes on top of his head, had unnaturally shifted his vision away, embarrassed to look at the World Mercenary Group. From the data, it could be seen who was the real lousy teammate. Long Yunzhan did not use these numbers to speak. He continued coldly, "Take advantage of this opportunity to properly nurse your body and strength. Right now I can't be sure how long this stone wall can stop those corpse puppets. If a battle really breaks out later, you can only rely on yourself. It was rare for Long Yunzhan to speak for such a long time, so the World Group's mercenaries immediately responded in unison. On the Azure Group's side, they looked at each other. Finally, under Yi Fengru's signal, they all sat cross-legged on the ground, closed their eyes and stabilized the chaotic internal force in their bodies. The World Group on the other hand took out the prepared rations and water bags from their space pockets, passing them down one by one as they ate the rations in big mouthfuls. The Killing God Group and a dozen other mercenaries smelled the fragrance and immediately opened their eyes. Even in this kind of atmosphere, the ordinary dry rations that they usually disdained to eat seemed especially fragrant at this moment. 10 over mercenaries' stomachs couldn't help but let out a growl in response. They had been guarding the World Group outside the tomb since early in the morning and later on in King Ling's tomb, walking for over 2 hours, and having experienced so many hair-raising matters, all their energy had been depleted. Chapter 831. Yi Fengru, who had received the space bag, had a glint in his gloomy eyes. His fingers tightened slightly as he stiffly passed it to the mercenaries beside him. The Death God Group's mercenaries were all stuffing their stomachs without saying a word as their gazes were fixed on Yiqing Luo, who was still helping Nangong Firen to expel the corpse qi. She was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, looking so immature, and her profound qi was so weak, but she was able to take up such a heavy burden. Everything in the tomb was all because of this young lady. They were lucky enough to survive. They had no choice but to admit that after experiencing these 2 hours of matters, they were only left with a belly full of admiration towards this 15-year-old young lady. Yiqing Luo followed Old Man Song's instructions as she swiftly operated the actions in her hands. It was all thanks to the numerous precious medicinal herbs which Zhou Xian had prepared in the profound phoenix ring. Combined with the medicinal herbs and profound qi, under the dual pressure, that lump of blood which was emitting green fog was finally expelled after 1 hour. Yiqing Luo used the oiled paper to wrap that pool of blood and wiped it clean without leaving a single trace. Following that, she stood up straight as she casually threw the oiled paper to Xianxia. "If you don't want to attract the worms, then take good care of this bag of tainted blood." Saying that, she turned around and walked towards Long Yunzhan's direction. She received the dry rations and water bag from Long Yunzhan and started to gobble it down in big mouthfuls. "What should we do now?" Long Yunzhan appeared slightly worried as his brows creased slightly as he glanced at the direction of the Death God Group. More than 20 mercenaries from the Killing God Group had died. If it wasn't for the fact that they had great teamwork and were able to listen to Yiqing Luo's instructions at the fastest speed. Probably after the Death God Group's mercenaries were all dead, the World Group would not be spared. If they really followed the plan which they had before coming, which was Long Yunzhan and the rest escorting their brothers out of the Ling King's tomb while Yiqing Luo followed the Death God mercenaries to find a chance to complete the mission. Long Yunzhan would not agree to it no matter what. After all, not only did the Death God mercenaries have an ulterior motive towards Yiqing Luo, Long Yunzhan also doubted the Death God mercenaries' ability. If Yiqing Luo and the Death God mercenaries were to stay, these people would probably become Yiqing Luo's burden. Yiqing Luo wiped the water from the corner of her mouth and placed the water bag back into her space pocket. She squinted her eyes and looked at the strange totem on the rock wall, which looked like it had been splashed with blood. Her slender brows frowned slightly. "I'm afraid it's impossible to return the way we came." Yiqing Luo clenched her fists and immediately shut her eyes. "We fell directly from the outer perimeter, and even if we were to return using the original route, we would at most reach the place where we fell. Isn't there another road over there? Let's go that way and we'll be able to find the entrance to the periphery." Xianxia anxiously spoke. After staying in such a gloomy place for so long, she could no longer endure it. Yiqing Luo didn't open her eyes as her lips curled into a ridiculing arc. "Then go ahead and try." In this tomb of the Ling King, there were not only 2 mercenary groups. There was also a group of powerful existences hidden in the dark. The commotion caused by that wave of power was enough to cause the periphery of the tomb to collapse. It could be seen that the people from that wave of power should have directly entered from the middle level and reached the bottom level. Only thing was not sure what method that wave of power used to be able to bypass the 5 corpses and the Guardian King corpses to directly enter the main tomb of the Ling King, causing a commotion. Along the way they didn't meet with any mechanisms or arrays. If Yiqing Luo didn't guess wrongly, it should have been cleared by that wave of power. So if they were to return using the original route, That route would definitely be filled with mechanisms and arrays. Chapter 832. Especially until now that hidden force had yet to reveal itself. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that they had created such a huge commotion and that force had yet to discover it. Before she could guess the motive of that hidden force, Yiqing Luo didn't intend to act rashly. If Xianxia wanted to court death, she wouldn't stop him. But those with brains would know that if they chose to try their luck to find the middle-level exit alone, it was simply courting death. As expected, Xianxia shut his mouth. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes as though she was taking a nap to recover her energy. In actual fact, she was asking Old Man Song in her mind if there was any way to restrain the corpse puppets. God Thief couldn't explain, but it didn't mean that Old Man Song, who had lived for thousands of years, didn't know. 1 hour and there's no sound of the corpse puppets chasing after us. Apparently these corpse puppets are afraid of fire. Yiqing Luo pondered and said, but ordinary fire, I'm afraid there's no way to burn these 5 high-leveled corpse puppets. Say, if I had let you pass the second level of the Purgatory Tower earlier, you wouldn't be in such a predicament now. Old Man Song sighed helplessly. The second level's reward can restrain the high-leveled corpse puppets? Yiqing Luo frowned as her eyes shone brightly. But in a blink of an eye it dimmed down. Challenging the first level of the Purgatory Tower would take at least 1 day's time. Those 5 corpse puppets probably wouldn't give her the time to challenge them. And being in the Ling King's tomb, she wasn't at ease to directly extract her soul consciousness to challenge the Purgatory Tower. If any accident happened and her physical body was damaged, her soul consciousness and soul would be damaged. She couldn't take this risk. Whether you can restrain them or not, it's useless to say more now. Old Man Song realized that he had revealed the second level of Purgatory's reward and immediately changed the topic. 5 high-leveled corpse puppet strength is equivalent to 5 sky mystic overlords. Just based on your strength, to defeat the 5 corpses is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Don't keep saying it's difficult. Give me some useful advice. Yiqing Luo wanted to roll her eyes. At this moment, couldn't Old Man Song be straight to the point? Old Man Song remained silent for a moment before he slowly said, actually there's another way, but your profound jade heart might not be able to support it. Right now, the profound jade heart in Yiqing Luo's heart had already shown some abnormalities. If he forcefully used the power of the profound jade heart in order to defeat the 5 corpses. Your target isn't the 5 corpses but the Guardian Corpse King. Once the 5 corpses die, the Guardian Corpse King will awaken. At that time, without the profound heart jade, you who are extremely weak might not even be able to resist a normal corpse puppet. Old Man Song's voice was exceptionally heavy. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched a few times. Say it. The atmosphere was heavy. Another hour passed. Yiqing Luo's eyes were still shut without any reaction. If it wasn't for the occasional movement of her eyelashes, everyone would have suspected that she was asleep. There were already people on the Azura group's side who felt increasingly terrified and strange under this kind of tranquil atmosphere, and only wanted to quickly leave this place. But unfortunately, Yiqing Luo had no intention to take action. At this moment, a loud and clear howl of a corpse broke the silence. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Their gazes were all focused on the stone wall. Before the crowd could recover from their shock, the tomb began to tremble violently once more. It was accompanied by sharp howls from the corpse hag. It was the turbulence caused by the corpse hag crashing against the stone wall. Everyone's faces were steely green as one by one, they shrunk towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes as she squinted her eyes and gazed at the stone wall. Chapter 833. Indeed, her guess was right. That blazing fire obstructed the 5 corpse puppets for close to 2 hours. The corpse puppets were refined from dried corpses 1,000 years ago. Other than the black robe, there was only a set of skeleton left. Naturally, they were afraid of being burned by the fire. If it had been an ordinary corpse puppet, that wave of raging fire would have burned it to ashes. Looked like the method that Old Man Song mentioned earlier. She might, pong, pong pong pong. The sound of the corpse puppets hitting the stone wall became increasingly violent. Every time it shook, it seemed to affect one's heart as it kept twitching. Nangong Lin was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat as her face was filled with tears. Run. Let's run. Who knows when those corpse puppets will break this stone wall open? Nangong Firen leaned against the stone wall as the back of his head touched those slippery vines, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Hearing Nangong Lin's whimpering, he frowned slightly as he glanced sideways at his arm which had been bandaged, and his target fell onto Yiqing Luo. After the corpse qi was expelled from his body finally regained its temperature and his body temperature gradually returned to normal. Moving his arm, there was no pain coming from the wound. Nangong Firen closed his eyes as the image of Yiqing Luo's stunning face appeared in his mind. She pursed her lips tightly as she treated his wound indifferently. He should say that Yiqing Luo was quick-witted enough to know that under such circumstances, one more person's strength meant one more chance of survival, so she specially used a medicinal powder to numb the pain on his wound. Or should he say that Yiqing Luo was heartless to those who weren't her companions? Once this medicinal powder was used, after the medicinal effect had worn off, he would suffer hundreds of times more pain than now. Seventh sister, even if this stone wall can stop the corpse puppets, but this tomb will collapse any time. We'd better think of a way to leave this place first. Yi Fengru's voice revealed his gentleness at this moment. He lowered his eyelids as he gently patted the sobbing Nangong Lin who was in his arms. Everyone's gaze immediately focused on Yiqing Luo. To leave or not to leave, everything depended on Yiqing Luo's decision. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as her lips curled into a faint cold arc. Can we leave? It's still better than sitting here and waiting for death. Yi Fengru's gentle eyebrows knitted together, and his eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. Don't want to sit still and wait for death? Yiqing Luo's gaze moved as she looked at Yi Fengru. Yi Fengru twisted his eyebrows. That gaze made him feel a chill run down his spine. But the arrow had already been knocked and he could only clench his teeth and nod. The Death God Squad cannot lose any more brothers. All right. Yiqing Luo slowly stood up and walked to the front of the stone wall, her gaze calm and indifferent. Then, for the sake of your Azura group's brothers, I need your help. Yi Fengru was startled. The surrounding mercenaries all looked at him with hopeful eyes. Even if he didn't want to, he had to agree. All right. As long as you can guarantee that everyone will survive. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about Yi Fengru's words and directly turned around to look at the mercenaries from both sides and began to instruct them on what to do next. The tomb continued to shake. Gravel fell and cracks gradually appeared on the ground. The corpse puppet was still hitting the stone wall. On this side, under Yiqing Luo's arrangement, the mercenaries stood in their positions. Just as the last mercenary was about to complete his task, the stone wall suddenly exploded with a loud bang. Countless gravel flew straight towards the mercenaries' faces. The 10 over Azura group's members who stood in the front row immediately shut their eyes and moved their heads to one side. Yiqing Luo had instructed them to stand firmly on the spot no matter what. They cursed silently in their hearts if Yiqing Luo had intentionally arranged for them to stand firmly at the front. Chapter 834. The whistling wind kept ringing beside their ears as it swept up the incoming gravel. Bam! The gravel was blown off its trajectory as it crashed onto the rock wall. First row attack. Yiqing Luo's calm commanding voice was heard beside their ears. The mercenaries instinctively obeyed the command as they raised the weapons in their hands and attacked towards the 5 corpse puppets in front of them. After the rock wall was smashed open, those 5 corpse puppets instantly rushed up. The 5 corpses were burnt by the intense fire, and even though they had swallowed the air freshener pill, that burnt stench was faintly discernible in their noses. Perhaps it was because they had been burnt earlier, which infuriated the 5 corpses. The 5 corpses' howls were mournful and strange, making one's heart tremble. The first row of mercenaries were all members of the Azura group. Recalling Yiqing Luo's serious instructions, even though they were terrified, they still went up to attack and started the mission which Yiqing Luo had given them. The few of them worked together, but there was no way to win the advanced corpse puppets. After they wrapped the things which Yiqing Luo had passed to them onto the 5 corpses, they swiftly retreated. The second row of mercenaries immediately went up to them. The corpse puppets had strong explosive power, but they were after all refined by arrays. Other than exterminating all the living creatures in the tomb and merging them into one with themselves, they didn't know how to think about other things. Because of this, these mercenaries listened to Yiqing Luo's instructions and wouldn't go head-on against the corpse puppets. Only when the front row attracted the attention of the corpse puppets, the back row swiftly wrapped the things onto the 5 corpses. Following that was the third row. Fourth row. By the time all the mercenaries had completed their mission and retreated to one side, they saw a black shadow leaping over the top of the tomb. It was Yiqing Luo. She stood in the middle of the 5 corpses as her eyes were filled with a chilly glint. The black outfit wrapped around the lady's slender petite figure and the cherry blossom on her arm was extremely eye-catching. Her slender fingers held a red feather fan, and while she didn't dare to move her fingertips, a gush of powerful aura exploded from her. Huff, huff huff, a strong gust of wind swept everything in the tomb. It was clearly only the energy of a low-level profound practitioner, yet the imposing aura it emanated and the profound energy that swept out from the feather fan was so sharp, unstoppable, and intimidating. Yiqing Luo's footwork changed rapidly, not daring to make any mistakes. The feather fan in his hand was constantly fluctuating with profound qi. She guided the 5 corpse puppets to move in her designated position. Those 5 corpse puppets, after chasing Yiqing Luo for several rounds, started to howl in anger to demonstrate their might. The eerie white bone skeleton fingers turned into sharp weapons, as it directly struck towards Yiqing Luo from all directions. Vice Commander, Qing Luo. Everyone was on tenterhooks as they broke out in cold sweat while looking at Yiqing Luo, even holding their breaths. There was no way to hide. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes as her feather fan flipped over her fingertips, and like a ball of moving raging fire, it floated into the air. The corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile, and a vortex of raging flames shot down from the feather fan. It looked like a fire dragon with its mouth wide open. At the same time Yiqing Luo's delicate body swayed, the footwork under her feet became increasingly fast and strange, making people only able to see an afterimage. Only to see Yiqing Luo stepping on the corpse puppet, leaping up. With a somersault she was already standing on top of the opened feather fan. It was as if she was suspended in midair on top of the flame, blooming a gorgeous flower. That fire dragon opened its mouth and swiftly swallowed the corpse puppet completely. Yiqing Luo landed lightly on the ground, stretched out her 5 fingers, and the feather fan returned to her palm. Chapter 835. That's right, stare. Those 5 corpse puppets, which were shrouded in black robes, all raised their heads at this moment. Under the black robes, there were pairs of faint green glows. They couldn't see their eyes or eyeballs. Only 2 balls of faint green light were embedded on those eerie white bones. It was extremely terrifying. Yiqing Luo retreated to the mercenary group's side as she turned her head towards Yifeng Ru. Second brother, release your heart flame. Standing by the side, Yifeng Ru, who didn't understand what Yiqing Luo needed his help, was stunned. Heart flame. Yiqing Luo nodded calmly. Release your heart flame, the purer the better, the more vigorous the better. Yifeng Ru's brows creased tightly, not understanding the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Before he could ask, those 5 corpse puppets which had dispersed the fire dragon leapt towards their direction furiously. 12 balls of faint green light whizzed towards their faces, bringing along a gust of chilly air. Yifeng Ru was so shocked that he retreated several steps as his heart pounded and his legs turned soft as his body kept shivering. Heart flame. By his ear was Yiqing Luo's anxious roar. Yifeng Ru didn't dare to ask what was the purpose of releasing her heart flame, as he subconsciously used his profound jade heart's energy to condense a ball of heart flame as he shot it towards the corpse puppets. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's heart flame was also released. Those 5 corpse puppets which pounced over were still on the original spot as they continued to struggle, but were not able to move an inch. As though they were imprisoned on the original spot, unable to move. It's Silver Threads. It's the World Group's Vice Group leader's Silver Threads. Some mercenaries pointed out the reason why the corpse puppets were unable to move. The crowd followed the glow from the luminous pearl and looked over. They saw those 5 corpse puppets' black robes were all stuck with silver threads which glowed with a cold glint. The silver threads intertwined and penetrated through the surrounding rock walls, forming a silver thread cage which bound the corpse puppets tightly, totally unable to move. Following the direction of the silver threads, the last place which the silver threads bound was that feather fan in Yiqing Luo's hands. The mercenaries suddenly realized the reason why Yiqing Luo gave each row of mercenaries a piece of silver wire to wrap around the corpse puppet's body and immediately changed to the next row. And earlier Yiqing Luo used her strange footwork to constantly change her direction, leading the corpse puppet to scurry around. in order to fix the silver threads on the corpse puppet onto the two sides of the rock walls, and to form an invisible cage. The Killing God group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with shock, which made their admiration towards Yiqing Luo unable to be expressed in words. A 15-year-old girl actually possessed such a sharp mind and strength. At this moment, these mercenaries didn't bother to ask what Yiqing Luo needed Yi Fengru's heart flame for. Even Xianxia remained silent and did not speak. The power of the heart flame was only a flame spark used by alchemists to refine medicinal pills. It could only be used to refine medicinal pills. It was useless for other things. Yiqing Luo wanted to use her heart flame to burn the corpse puppet? This thought was soon confirmed. After Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengru released the power of their heart flame, Yiqing Luo's entire body seemed as though it was enveloped by a ball of blazing fire. But in an instant that powerful energy had completely fused the two's heart flame's energy, directly crashing onto the corpse puppet which was bound. Everyone's vision fell onto the corpse puppet's side. After the heart flame fell onto the corpse puppet's body, it instantly engulfed the 5 corpse puppets. In the air there was an extremely unpleasant burnt smell. No one discovered that the powerful energy earlier was shot out from Yiqing Luo's wrist. Chapter 836. The corpse puppets were afraid of fire. Ordinary flames were unable to incinerate the corpse puppets. But as an alchemist she could use the power of the heart flame condensed from the profound jade heart and borrow Old Man Song's power to force the heart flame out of her body, and then she could incinerate the corpse puppets. The heart flame was indeed used to refine pills. To other living things it had no use at all. But to the corpse puppets it was extremely useful. She only needed to treat the corpse puppets as pills to refine. But the current Yiqing Luo, releasing the heart flame to incinerate the corpse puppets. The consequences were very serious. Old Man Song didn't recommend her to do so. But the arrow was already on the bow. Yiqing Luo had no other choice. Her profound jade heart had already reacted. If she released the heart flame to incinerate the corpse puppets, it was very likely to cause damage to her profound jade heart. The power of the heart flame was in fact the power of the jade heart condensed from the profound jade heart. If Yiqing Luo forcefully expended the power of the profound jade heart, once it was damaged she was very likely to become an ordinary person who had lost her profound jade heart. In the Ling King's tomb, once she became an ordinary person, and was so weak that she had no ability to retaliate. There was no way she could survive. This was the reason why Old Man Song asked Yiqing Luo to consider carefully. Because of this she specially called Yi Fengru, who was also an alchemist. Although Yi Fengru was a dark alchemist, but his heart flame was still used to refine pills. The 5 corpse puppets kept brandishing their claws, howling in pain, trying to escape the binding of the silver thread, trying to escape the burning of the heart flame. They didn't have any rationality, didn't know how to think, but facing the feeling that was about to disappear from this world they still had. But alas, no matter how their sharp bones tried to tear that cold silver thread, no matter how they tried, they were unable to move the silver thread at all. The intensity of the heart flame was getting fiercer and fiercer, with a visible glow directly burned to the top of the rock wall. Increase the strength of the heart flame. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, looking at the struggling corpse puppets. Although in pain, but not completely burnt out, she gritted her teeth and berated in a stern voice. This degree of fire was probably not enough to incinerate the 5 advanced corpse puppets. Lu, prepare to release the heart flame, the last step all depends on you. Yiqing Luo turned her head and looked at Beiming Lulu, who was already prepared. Beiming Lulu nodded her head vigorously. Within the azure dew bracelet Old Man Song raised his voice and growled, "Girl, you're too reckless. If this goes on before the corpse puppet is completely incinerated, my profound jade heart's energy will be depleted and I won't be able to release the power of my heart flame." The current situation didn't allow Yiqing Luo to decide whether she was willing or not. At the very least, right now she could still guarantee the survival of her group of brothers by forcefully consuming the power of the profound jade heart. Otherwise, when the power of the heart fire could no longer be released, all of them would be fused by the enraged corpse puppet. Yi Fengru's forehead was already dripping with cold sweat. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he almost couldn't catch his breath. If this goes on, our profound jade heart will exhaust its energy. After the power of the profound jade heart was exhausted, it would take at least 3 to 5 days to recover. Yiqing Luo dared to use such a risky method? Didn't you say that for the sake of our brother's survival, you would do anything? Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Why, you can't even do such a small thing. At this moment, if one were to take a closer look, one would be able to tell that Yiqing Luo's eyes were hiding a smear of strenuous effort and stubbornness. Only when Yi Fengru heard Yiqing Luo's ridicule, his attention had already been diverted. He secretly clenched his teeth and could only release the power of the heart flame even more ferociously. Chapter 837. In her chest there seemed to be a raging fire incessantly burning. Wave after wave of scorching sensation whizzed towards her heart. Yiqing Luo's breathing became heavy. She clenched her teeth, forcing herself to take a deep breath, trying hard to maintain the momentum of the heart fire. Lass, you can't continue to be brave. Let the divine doctor from the Beiming family come over and take over. This profound jade heart of yours can no longer be used up. Old man Tsang's tone was solemn as he berated her. Yiqing Luo herself also felt it. The place where the profound jade heart was hidden was completely scorching hot, as though it was about to expand and explode. That profound jade heart was also trembling non-stop, constantly sending out warnings. It wasn't that she wasn't willing to stop. But now was a critical juncture. If she stopped, she would definitely not have the energy to support another breath, to release the heart fire. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. Sweat drenched her black hair, sweat dripping down from her forehead wet her eyelashes. In the haze, she saw the corpse puppet that was restrained by the silver silk cage, had already lost the strength to struggle. That wide black robe gradually turned into ashes. That ghastly white skeleton gradually turned into ashes. She fiercely took a deep breath, once again activated the profound jade heart's energy, increasing the intensity of the fire. Lulu. She called out. Beiming Lulu was already prepared, immediately releasing the power of the heart fire, making the last wave of heart fire attack. After Beiming Lulu's heart fire merged with the other two balls of heart fire, with a whoosh, the intensity of the fire once again rushed to the top of the rock wall. Hua! A crisp shattering sound came from Yiqing Luo's body. When the 5 corpse puppets were burnt to ashes, Yiqing Luo's body fell softly to the ground at the same time. The profound jade heart couldn't hold on, directly shattered in her heart. Yiqing Luo could even clearly feel that the 2 halves of the profound jade heart gradually disappeared without a trace of breath. Pain immediately attacked her entire body. Yiqing Luo coughed lightly, her petite body lying on the ground, trembling slightly. Yi Fengru also went limp by the side, panting heavily, wiping off the sweat on his head. Finally, dealt with the 5 corpse puppets. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Yi Fengru was sweating profusely, panting heavily as he turned his head to look at the girl beside him. Yiqing Luo's condition seemed to be much more serious than his. His face was deathly pale and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. She trembled and lay on the ground powerlessly. Even her breathing was so light that it seemed like it would stop in the next second. Yi Fengru's handsome face revealed a faintly discernible expression. His eyes slowly narrowed and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes for a moment before disappearing. Jean. Yiqing Luo's voice was extremely weak as she slowly raised her hand, wanting to ask Long Yunzhan to carry her away. She knew that after losing the profound heart jade she would become an ordinary person. However, he didn't expect that he would be so weak. She couldn't even move her body. Now even a Tom, Dick or Harry could easily take her life. Yiqing Luo gave a bitter smile as her lips twitched. Long Yunzhan's heart had been hanging by a thread, as he kept an eye on Yiqing Luo's condition. The minute he heard Yiqing Luo calling his name he immediately walked over. Only the next second Long Yunzhan's expressionless face turned steely green and black. Yi Fengru. Long Yunzhan's icy cold voice sharply called out Yi Fengru's name. Yiqing Luo was in a daze, almost fainting. Suddenly her body felt heavy and she hazily opened her eyes, meeting Yi Fengru's gloomy eyes. Chapter 838. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her charming eyes flashed with a biting cold glint. What do you want to do? The corner of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up, his gloomy eyes filled with madness. The Death God mercenary group's purpose for appearing here, aren't you very clear? For the Phoenix Ring. Yiqing Luo's complexion instantly turned paler. Yi Fengru wanted to take advantage of her weakness to steal the profound phoenix ring? He didn't want to think too much about it. Yi Fengru had already used his actions to confirm his thoughts. Yi Fengru grabbed Yi Qingluo's arm tightly. His fingers nimbly pinched the profound phoenix ring on her index finger and tugged hard. Despicable. Yi Qingluo gritted her teeth and spat out 2 words. She didn't have the slightest bit of strength to struggle. The sharp pain in her heart made her lose the strength to struggle. This was the profound phoenix ring that Zhou Xian had given her. No one could take away the profound phoenix ring. Yi Qingluo bit her lower lip tightly, trying to use the pain to raise her spirits. Long Yunzhan wanted to step forward, but Yi Fengru used Yi Qingluo's life as a threat. The mercenaries of the World Mercenary Group didn't dare to act rashly. The current Yi Qingluo, anyone could tell that she was so weak that she had no ability to retaliate. Their hearts were burning with anxiety, and their eyes were filled with hatred and resentment as they looked at Yi Fengru. This was the kind of person who burned the bridge after crossing the river. Yi Fengru kept twisting the profound phoenix ring. Yi Qingluo's fair fingers were already covered with circles of red marks from his rough actions. But the profound phoenix ring was still firmly on Yi Qingluo's index finger, and there was no way to remove it. 7th sister, I advise you to be tactful and hand over the profound phoenix ring. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heartless. Yi Fengru's eyes were filled with madness. This kind of expression, this kind of words filled with threat. However, his tone was still as gentle as ever. It made one's hair stand on end. The phoenix ring was a divine artifact. After a divine artifact recognized a master, no one other than the master could use it. Just like the profound phoenix ring, other than Yi Qingluo and Zhou Xian, no one else could take the ring off from her hands. Yi Qingluo no longer had the energy to speak as her misty eyes couldn't conceal the sharpness in her eyes. Yi Fengru snorted and a dagger appeared in his hand. Yi Fengru, if you dare to touch a single strand of Qingluo's hair, I will immediately exterminate your Azura group. Long Yunzhan's deep and cold voice was hurriedly heard. The corners of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up in a crazed smile as he stared at the profound phoenix ring. As long as I can get the profound phoenix ring, so what if I kill everyone? As long as you still care about this beautiful and moving 7th sister, you won't dare to make a move against me. Yi Fengru had grasped the world group's sentiments and loyalty very clearly. As long as they held on to Yi Qingluo, those youngsters wouldn't dare to act rashly. There's still poison on your body, and without Qingluo's antidote, you will act up again in 2 hours' time. Qiao Jin shouted angrily, silently cursing Yi Fengru for being despicable and shameless. Yi Fengru's mouth twitched in disapproval. 7th sister's heart isn't hard enough after all. That pill just now was the antidote. He chuckled softly. The dagger was already close to Yi Qingluo's index finger. 7th sister, second brother will give you one last chance. If you insist on not handing over the profound phoenix ring, second brother will not go easy on you. If she couldn't take off the profound phoenix ring, then she would directly chop off Yi Qingluo's finger. She could still take the profound phoenix ring away. An icy cold touch was felt from her index finger. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes as her lips moved coldly, spitting out 2 words at him. Pui. A mouthful of saliva was directly spat on Yi Fengru's face. Chapter 839. Fengru, stop it. Nangong Firen held onto her arm weakly as she struggled to stand up. However, Yi Fengru seemed as though he couldn't hear anything from the outside world as his gaze turned sharp and his actions didn't hesitate at all. Roar, roar, roar. At the critical moment, a sharp and piercing beast howl broke the silence of the tomb. They saw a black shadow leaping past everyone's eyes. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, everyone could only see that sharp fangs, glistening with flowing light. Red blood slowly dripped down along the teeth. Sliding down the throat, it was extremely enchanting. Ah! A miserable shriek was heard from Yi Fengru's mouth. In everyone's line of sight, a huge leopard with shiny black fur and a body as black as ink appeared. It opened its mouth and its sharp fangs viciously bit onto Yi Fengru's wrist. That pair of brown beast eyes were opened wide like bronze bells as it was filled with the leopard's fury. Wuxia. The world group's mercenaries heaved a sigh of relief as their suspended hearts slowly sunk. Yi Qingluo's lips twitched helplessly. Her Shiju had rushed over to save her. The minute they entered the tomb, she released Shiju and went around to check on the surrounding situation. But before Shiju returned, the tomb collapsed and they fell into the middle layer of the tomb. She had not expected Shiju to follow her scent and find its way over. Wait a minute. Found its way over? From the periphery of the tomb, it directly came to the bottom layer? Which meant that Shiju had found the exit to leave the tomb? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Let go. Beast. Yi Fengru's miserable shriek was still ringing beside her ears. His wrist, along with that dagger, was bitten by Shiju. The dagger broke into pieces as it fell onto the ground. Unfortunately, Yi Fengru's wrist was bleeding continuously as the intense pain stimulated his consciousness. Sometimes it clenched its teeth tightly, cutting his skin and stirring his meridians. Sometimes it loosened its teeth and used that smelly tongue to lick the blood that seeped out. Heaven, the world group, let's discuss this. If this goes on, Yi Fengru's hand will be crippled. Nangong Firen's voice trembled as she used a negotiating tone. Let Yi Fengru go and our Azura group will give you an explanation. Bah. Qiao Jin spat fiercely. Earlier when that scoundrel Yi Fengru wanted to chop off Qing Luo's finger, why didn't he think that Qing Luo's hand would be crippled? Even if Shiju didn't bite off Yi Fengru's hand, the coin dart in my hand wouldn't let him go. These words were echoed by the world group's youngsters. Just based on what Yi Fengru had done to Yi Qing Luo earlier, even if he were to die 100 times, it would not be enough to vent his anger. Shiju. Kill him. That's right. Eat him alive and swallow him into your stomach. The mercenaries of the world group roared with righteous indignation. Shiju's copper bell-sized eyes blinked as it looked at Yi Qing Luo as though it was asking, "Can I really eat him up?" His brown eyes were filled with innocence. His mouth was biting on his bloody wrist. No matter how one looked at it, it was strange. Yi Qing Luo wanted to laugh, but she didn't have the energy to do so. She just moved her eyes lightly, indicating for it to let go of Yi Fengru. Shiju obediently bit Yi Fengru's arm and threw it towards Nangong Firen's direction. Following that, it lowered its head and picked up Yi Qing Luo's petite body as it leapt back to Long Yunzhan's side. Long Yunzhan swiftly caught Yi Qing Luo. Bei Ming Lu squeezed forward and helped to take Yi Qing Luo's pulse. Chapter 840. The minute she said that, Bai Ming Lu stopped. The Death God mercenary group had been eyeing Yi Qing Luo covetously by the side. She couldn't say anything about Yi Qing Luo's current situation. Returning to her brother's side, Yi Qing Luo had already relaxed as she shut her eyes weakly and leaned into Long Yunzhan's arms. Qing Luo, why are you still talking about sibling ties at this moment? Just let Shiju bite his hand off. Qiao Jin's eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Yi Fengru, who was being supported by Wei Beilai. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her breathing slowly lengthened. Her slender long fingers lightly scraped the back of Long Yunzhan's hand. Long Yunzhan instantly understood what Yi Qing Luo was thinking. His face turned black as his gaze turned chilly as though it was covered with frost. His voice was chilly as though it was wrapped in ice. Death God mercenary group, if you don't want to die, stop the bleeding immediately. Nangong Firen was stunned when he heard that as his pupils grew wide as he turned his head and shouted anxiously, "Quickly stop the bleeding for Yi Fengru. Be careful of the corpse worms." Everyone was instantly enlightened. Why did Shiju only bite Yi Fengru's wrist and didn't bite it off or directly tear Yi Fengru into pieces? It was because of this reason. In King Ling's tomb, blood must not be seen. If Yi Fengru's wrist was bitten off, it would definitely spill a lot of blood. If it attracted the corpse worms under the situation where there was no flame, they would be swallowed by the worms directly, leaving nothing behind. So Shiju only cut the skin on Yi Fengru's wrist and kept on licking his blood. Qiao Jin clenched his fists as he clenched the gold coin darts tightly. After we get out, kill Yi Fengru however you want. For now, let's spare his dog life. Long Yunzhan's expression was still indifferent, but his eyes were overflowing with a thick chilly intent, mixed with a murderous aura which was waiting to be unleashed. This is the consequence of messing around. Even if you die here, you deserve it. His cold voice was filled with anger. His pair of clear blue eyes that were as clear as lake water stared coldly at the person in his arms. He was really angry. If he wasn't angry, the usually cold Long Yunzhan would absolutely not say such sarcastic words. Yi Qing Luo knew that she was in the wrong and simply didn't have any energy to respond. How is she? Long Yunzhan's cold eyes suddenly looked at Bai Ming Lulu. Bai Ming Lulu shuddered as she coughed lightly and replied via the mercenary group badge. Qing Luo she, her profound heart jade, seems to be gone. Yi Qing Luo's pulse was in a mess, to such an extent that she couldn't detect the slightest fluctuation of profound qi. This could only prove that Yi Qing Luo had forcefully exhausted the power of her profound heart jade, causing it to overload and directly shatter within her body. This kind of thing was not unheard of. The profound heart jade was gone, which meant that the current Yi Qing Luo was an ordinary person who didn't even have the ability to move. In this kind of strange and gloomy tomb, an ordinary person who did not even have the strength to walk was extremely dangerous. Long Yunzhan's eyes grew colder. Yi Qing Luo, who was in his arms, couldn't help but shudder. Long Yunzhan's eyes were covered with a layer of extreme coldness, as if it was covered with a thin layer of frost. He slowly squatted down and placed Yi Qing Luo by Shiju's side, nestling in between Shiju's soft fur. His cold voice seemed to be faintly discernible as it fell into everyone's ears. In order to save everyone, in order to let everyone survive, Qing Luo risked her own life, but what did she get in return? His pale thin lips gently pulled into a faintly discernible austere arc, raising his eyes. His azure blue eyes were fixated on Yi Fengru. Long Yunzhan slowly walked towards him. What I got in return is your Azura group burning the bridge after crossing the river, repaying kindness with ingratitude. Chapter 841. That long sword was extremely horrifying. The blade of the sword was faintly discernible with sparkling light patterns that looked like pieces of scales. The icy aura was powerful and majestic. It was as though a ball of cold current was spreading from Long Yunzhan's feet. The mercenaries from the Azura group were shocked by this aura as they stared at the long sword in his hand. Their legs were already trembling uncontrollably. All of you deserve to die. Long Yunzhan's cold words came out from his thin lips. His long sword danced and swept up sword waves. Profound qi and the cold current intertwined as he slashed down. The entire tomb trembled under this powerful aura. Pieces of gravel fell one after another. The continuous tremors had already overwhelmed the tomb. The sound of gravel falling to the ground and the cracking of the ground overlapped with each other. It was obvious that the tomb was about to collapse again. Leader of the world group, I'm afraid this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Nangong Firen felt a chill down his spine when he met that pair of azure eyes. He felt suffocated. Nangong Firen was fearful of this young man who looked no more than 20 years old but had such an imposing aura. Long Yunzhan really wanted to kill them. There was no other emotion in Long Yunzhan's eyes. There was only a thick killing intent. Long Yunzhan ignored Nangong Firen's words. The sword qi was majestic and the sword wave that slashed down left countless cracks on the rock wall. Nangong Firen held Nangong Lin in one hand and Yi Fengru in the other as they fled pathetically to avoid Long Yunzhan's attack. More than 10 mercenaries from the Azura group turned pale as they were overwhelmed with shock. This powerful aura was definitely not something that an ordinary mystic realm cultivator could release. Long Yunzhan's profound rank was at least above Earth profound rank 6, or even higher. Otherwise, a group of Earth profound realm cultivators like them wouldn't be intimidated to this extent. Fengru, why are you so determined to snatch the profound phoenix ring? Xianxia was also frightened by this frigid aura that felt like she was in an ice house. Her beautiful face was filled with displeasure. From the beginning, Yi Fengru was the one who wanted to snatch the profound phoenix ring. Leading the Azura God Group's 30 over elite mercenaries, under the pretense of accepting the outer mission of the Ling King's tomb, in actual fact snatching the profound phoenix ring from Yi Qing Luo's hands. Even though the ring belonged to the Overlord. But after all, this divine relic had already signed a blood contract with Yi Qing Luo. Other than Yi Qing Luo, no one else could remove the profound phoenix ring. Moreover, in this kind of dangerous situation, they needed to rely on Yi Qing Luo to have a chance to leave the Ling King's tomb. Why? At this moment Yi Fengru had to make a move. Wasn't this forcefully breaking the hearts of the two mercenary groups that had finally prepared to cooperate with each other? It wasn't just Xianxia who didn't understand what Yi Fengru was thinking. Even Nangong Firen, who had been Yi Fengru's classmate for several years, couldn't figure out what Yi Fengru was thinking. I was the one who stole the ring and I was the one who threatened Seventh Sister. If you want to kill me, come at me alone. Yi Fengru panted heavily. His gloomy eyes stared unblinkingly at Long Yunzhan, who was filled with killing intent. He patted Nangong Firen's shoulder, indicating for him to be released. Feng Ru. Nangong Firen's brows creased slightly as he shouted out Yi Fengru's words. Following that, he deliberated over his words. There are many worms in the Ling King's tomb. If we were to fight here, it would only cause both of us to suffer. In the end, we will be devoured by the worms. Let's talk about everything after we leave the Ling King's tomb. Long Yunzhan's long sword, which was covered with scales, kept buzzing as it vibrated gently in his palm. His azure blue eyes were filled with rays of blue light, which contrasted with the blue flowing light of the long sword, which made the coldness and callousness in his eyes even more obvious. Azura God Group's words turned a deaf ear to them. Chapter 842. Yiqing Luo knew that Long Yunzhan was angry, and it wasn't a light one. Perhaps it was her overly weak look, which was totally different from her usual arrogant and valiant self, which agitated Long Yunzhan. His mind was filled with thoughts of killing those mercenaries from the Azura Group. Even the divine dragon sword, which represented the identity of the dragon clan, was taken out. Wouldn't that expose his identity? Moreover, what Nangong Firen said was right. If they were to fight here, blood would definitely be spilled. If the worms were to be attracted and devoured everyone, wouldn't her effort of exhausting her profound Jade Heart's energy and causing the profound Jade Heart to shatter be in vain? No matter what, she must first stop Long Yunzhan from going crazy. Yiqing Luo borrowed Shiju's strength to slowly straighten her body. Her fingertips moved slightly as she tried to touch the profound Phoenix ring. She should be glad that after the profound Jade Heart shattered, the contracted profound Phoenix ring could be casually opened without the use of profound energy. Lass, your current body can't take your torment anymore. Old Man Tsang warned her. Yiqing Luo had already taken out a pill to replenish her energy as she pinched it gently as her lips curled. She had to stop Long Yunzhan even if she couldn't take it anymore. Long Yunzhan's rage was because of her. Only she could stop Long Yunzhan. Otherwise, if this carried on, not only would there be the danger of attracting the worms over, Long Yunzhan's identity as a human dragon might also be exposed. I won't mess around, don't worry. Yiqing Luo glanced at Shiju. Shiju understood as it stretched out its huge claws to receive the pill from Yiqing Luo's hand and sent it to her mouth. After taking the pill, Yiqing Luo closed her eyes. Only when the medicine took effect did she feel that her breathing was a little smoother. Her four limbs gradually regained their strength. Yiqing Luo moved her arm. Although it was still sore and there was a faint stabbing pain in her heart, but luckily it was still bearable. She stood up and gazed towards Long Yunzhan's direction. Old Man Tsang sighed lightly, knowing that he had no way to stop Yiqing Luo's decision. This lass had been putting on a brave front ever since they entered Ling Wang's tomb. And it was because of this Yiqing Luo that made him willingly stay by her side. Yiqing Luo saw Long Yunzhan raising his long sword, slashing towards those people from the Azura God Group. His movements were swift and she was just about to head up to call out to Long Yunzhan. Suddenly, her eyes flashed and she quickly retreated a few steps, hitting the rock wall. It was just a simple action, but it was already strenuous for her. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she raised her eyes to look at the figure dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe. It floated in the air, its feet not touching the ground. Its red robe fluttered even though there was no wind. And what attracted Yiqing Luo's attention the most was its pair of scarlet red eyes. Humans. So many delicious humans. It curled its lips slightly, raised its hand to cover its chin and said in a greedy tone. The words that came out of his mouth were like a saw that had not been used for many years, hoarse and ear-piercing. Every word made one's hair stand on end. Yiqing Luo's vision was fixed on its hand. No, that couldn't be called as a hand. It was like the 5 corpses, a white skeleton without roots. Just a slight movement and one could hear the creaking sound of the joints twisting. Yiqing Luo, Vice Group Leader. The World Group's mercenaries couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts as they shouted Yiqing Luo's name with their foreheads covered in sweat. Chapter 843. Corpse King. Yiqing Luo's tone was calm. The person in front of him was dressed in a bright yellow brocade robe. His face was as pale as a corpse's, and his forehead was covered with a thin layer of ice. His pale, bloodless lips parted slightly, revealing his sharp fangs. Scarlet eyes, bizarre fangs, and a cold aura emanating from his body made him look like a zombie. The 5 corpses had already been burnt to ashes. The only thing that remained was the corpse puppet that looked like it wasn't an ordinary corpse puppet. Other than the Corpse King, there shouldn't be anything else. The Corpse King cackled, revealing a cold and treacherous smile. It was you who awakened this king? As expected, it was the Zombie King Guardian. Yiqing Luo's heart sank, but the expression on her face didn't waver at all. Seeing that Yiqing Luo wasn't the least bit afraid, Corpse King squinted his scarlet eyes in interest. Your body has the smell of burning 5 corpses, you've burnt my guards. So what if it's me? Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly. Want to kill me to avenge your guard? The moment he said that, the World Group's mercenaries all held their breaths. At the other end of the Azura group, their calves and abdomen were already unbearably soft, and their hearts were greatly shocked. This was the Zombie King Guardian. The Corpse King that guarded the Tomb King. They were not on the same level as the 5 corpse puppets just now. Yiqing Luo was too insolent. He clearly didn't even have the strength to stand firmly, yet he still used such an arrogant tone to speak to the Corpse King. If they angered the Corpse King, what would they do if they were implicated? Yiqing Luo seemed as though she hadn't noticed those people's gazes as her charming eyes swirled with a sliver of dark glint. If it wasn't for me, you might not be able to wake up even if you slept for thousands of years. I'm the one who woke you up, so you should be more grateful to me. The members of the Killing God group were so nervous that their hearts almost jumped out of their mouths. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Was there something wrong with the vice leader of this world group? Provoking the Zombie King like this, was he trying to enrage the Zombie King, causing the Zombie King to fly into a rage and directly destroy all of them? Hoarse laughter burst into the ears. Everyone was so shocked that their hearts started to tremble along with the frequency of the laughter. Interesting little girl. The Corpse King laughed. As he was laughing, his figure suddenly flashed and a gloomy cold breath whizzed towards Yiqing Luo's face. In a blink of an eye, King Corpse's pale face appeared right in front of Yiqing Luo. His speed was extremely fast, and the chilly wind that was stirred up caused everyone to shiver involuntarily. Yiqing Luo stared at the Corpse King, which was just inches away from her. That pair of scarlet eyes was filled with a faintly discernible ridicule. The chilly air blew on her cheeks. Yiqing Luo shuddered as goosebumps rose all over her body. The corpse puppet couldn't breathe, but the cold air coming from its body was unbearable to ordinary people. Yiqing Luo only trembled and very quickly concealed the flustered look in her eyes as she raised her head calmly. Could it be that Corpse King feels that I've said something wrong? Yes, you're absolutely right. The Corpse King nodded, his lips curling up. It's just that, before awakening this king, did you ask this king whether or not I was willing to awaken? It was a corpse puppet which was in deep sleep. Even if she asked, it wouldn't reply. The Corpse King's body leaned forward even more. That pale face was like a human skin as it stuck directly to Yiqing Luo. Chapter 844. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her peripheral vision glanced towards a certain direction as she pursed her pink lips tightly. I can burn your guards, I can also burn you. Ha. Ha. Corpse King slowly shifted his body as his scarlet eyes looked as though he was looking at a fool. Just based on you, a waste without any profound energy, you can burn me? That ghastly white bone was raised up high as a bone joint stretched out and pointed directly at Yiqing Luo's heart. Through her clothes, Yiqing Luo could feel a gust of cold air as it instantly enveloped her. She lowered her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered slightly as she gazed at that piece of white bone at her heart. It seemed as though the next second, that white bone would turn into a sharp blade as it directly pierced into her heart. Corpse King had long seen that her body was in poor condition. Thinking about it, her breathing was messy, and even though her 4 limbs had been replenished with essence chi pills, it was not as powerful as before. Not to mention the powerful Corpse King. Even an ordinary person would be able to see her current condition. No profound energy? Xianxia murmured these few words as her beautiful eyes suddenly lifted up and congealed towards Yiqing Luo. Your profound energy. Right. They couldn't sense any presence of profound qi from Yiqing Luo's body. No wonder after burning the 5 corpses, Yiqing Luo seemed as though she had no energy to move at all. Even Yi Fengru was unable to resist. Initially they only thought that Yiqing Luo had exhausted quite a bit of profound qi and temporarily had no energy. Yiqing Luo, who had always been the backbone, had lost her profound qi, which was equivalent to they were going to die in King Ling's tomb. The 10 over Death God mercenaries instantly turned pale as they looked at each other in dismay. From the other party's eyes, they could see the other party's fear and terror. Following that, almost at the same time, the few mercenaries tacitly made the same action. They took the opportunity when Corpse King's attention was attracted by Yiqing Luo to quietly get up and speedily sprinted towards the exit of the middle layer of the tomb. Just as they passed by the extremely fast huge stone, suddenly a ball of remnant shadow directly flashed past their eyes. They heard a hoarse cold voice as though a devil from hell had come to claim their lives. Under this king's eyes, you still want to escape? Those mercenaries had no time to react at all. He only felt a bone-piercing coldness, and before he could even scream, he suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. A few Azura group uniforms fell to the ground. As if they were touched by the 5 corpses, they were instantly killed, not even their bones were left. The other mercenaries who also wanted to escape immediately knelt on the ground. Yiqing Luo looked at the Corpse King, which disappeared in the blink of an eye and appeared several steps away, as she secretly gave a bitter smile. After losing the profound heart jade, she was indeed a cripple. He couldn't even see through the zombie king's movements. This bitter smile froze at the corner of his mouth when he saw the Corpse King slowly turn around. The undead king raised its 2 skeletal arms without any concealment, and the eerie white bones were being covered with a layer of human skin at a speed visible to the naked eye, gradually forming a hand with skin and flesh. Her skin was fair, slender, and glowed with a sparkling luster. Everyone's expression changed drastically. This Corpse King could also fuse with humans, turning the human body into nutrients for his own body. Following this, the Corpse King seemed to be extremely satisfied with his own pair of hands, as he looked back and forth for a long time, as the red glow beneath his eyes flashed as though blood was flowing. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. The Corpse King still didn't intend to give up? Did he want to treat all of them as food? While the Death God mercenary group was on tenterhooks, they saw the Corpse King's gaze firmly falling onto Yiqing Luo. Chapter 845. Saying that, Corpse King's figure swayed as it speedily closed in on Yiqing Luo. A pair of squinted scarlet eyes were filled with evil and maniacal malevolent laughter. Its 5 fingers opened wide as it directly locked onto Yiqing Luo's neck. Get lost. A deep roar was heard, and immediately following that was a sword wave which was suffused with blue light, wave after wave. Corpse King's reaction was swift as it turned around and raised both its arms as its sleeves fluttered, setting off a strong cold current which covered the sword wave which was coming towards it. 2 gushes of energy collided. In a split second the entire tomb started to crack. Following that, they saw Long Yunzhan holding his long sword as he speedily leapt to Yiqing Luo's side, pulling her into his embrace with one hand. With a leap, he speedily retreated to Shiju's side. The World Group's mercenaries regained their senses as they flew up and leapt in front of Corpse King as they cooperated with one another to block Corpse King's attack. Be careful. You're not its match. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled when she saw that as she raised her voice and howled loudly. After that howl, she leaned against the rock wall weakly as she laid limply. Long Yunzhan caught hold of her just in time. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and grabbed Long Yunzhan's lapel as her slender brows creased tightly as her charming eyes were filled with panic. They're not the Corpse King's match the minute they merge with it. Yiqing Luo, have a good rest. Qiao Jin's roguish voice was heard. He tossed the gold coin darts as his fingertips speedily shot out several gold coin darts towards Corpse King's face. When those gold coin darts flew past Corpse King's face, it was avoided by Corpse King acutely. Following that, a continuous barrage of gold coin darts flew over. At the same time, Li Mao's agile kitten-like body climbed up the surrounding rock walls as she speedily neared Corpse King's direction. While running, she didn't forget to reveal a crafty smile towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Sister, you've always been protecting us, now it's our turn to protect you. As she neared Corpse King, Li Mao's slender hand suddenly transformed into a huge black cat claw as it struck Corpse King's back with a palm strike. Corpse King's eyes were filled with anger as its scarlet eyes flashed with a devilish glint. It gave out a hoarse sneer. All of you are here to die. This king shall fulfill your wishes. Boom. Kitty Lee's claw landed on thin air. 5 deep claw marks appeared on the ground. The Corpse King's eyes flickered and he turned around to grab Kitty Lee behind him. Kitty. The other mercenaries immediately rushed forward. Yes. All along it had been Yi Qing Luo who had risked her life to protect them. In order to protect everyone, he didn't even hesitate to destroy his profound heart jade. Now it was up to them to fight in order to protect Yi Qing Luo. A strong murderous aura shot out from the mercenaries' eyes, and their Xian qi broke out of their bodies. In an instant the entire tomb was stirred up by raging waves of profound qi. The tomb was already unable to bear the weight. Huge rocks kept falling down and the tomb was on the verge of collapse. The mercenaries of the Azure group could not stand steadily. They supported each other and wanted to take the opportunity to leave. Nangong Firen's expression was cold as he commanded in a dignified manner, "Brothers of the God-slaying team, charge." The commander's orders must be obeyed. Even if he was afraid and uneasy, even if he wanted to run away. However, before their commander ordered them to retreat, they would fight until the very last moment. This was the mercenaries' spirit. But as the God-slaying team's previous actions had angered the Corpse King, they were forcefully merged into one body. Including Nangong Firen and the others, there were only 7 of them left. After they joined the battle, they didn't have much use. There were a total of 100 over people, but under the circumstance of ganging up on the Corpse King, they didn't gain any advantage at all. Chapter 846. Long Yunzhan's eyelids drooped as he calmly looked at Yi Qing Luo who was leaning on Shiju's back, and his vision fell onto Shiju. After looking for some time, he held his long sword and charged towards the Corpse King. The long sword sparkled with a faint blue sword glow and those layers of scales were like water ripples, sparkling under the clear and crystalline light. A strong wave rose, directly attacking towards the Corpse King. Murderous aura filled the sky, filling the entire tomb. In the Corpse King's eyes, these 100 over people were merely its food. The food's resistance was merely an appetizer. Dense murderous aura? The Corpse King's scarlet eyes were filled with interest as its hoarse voice roared. How dare you? Its brocade robe swelled up even more and its body instantly released a gush of strong cold current, directly sweeping towards its back. Long Yunzhan's expression didn't change as his figure leapt down from the rock wall, raising his long sword and waving it once again, striking towards the Corpse King. Human. Your taste and theirs are different. The Corpse King licked its pale lips, its bloodless face faintly revealing a few white bones. If I were to integrate you into my body, it would definitely be a very good nutrient. The more it said, the more the greedy glint in its scarlet eyes became brighter and brighter. It once again released its cold air, freezing the entire tomb's cold current wantonly flying about. And the long sword in this human's hand. This sword, it had already noticed it earlier. There was a burst of magical power which enticed it to completely absorb the energy on the sword. Human it wanted. The sword it also wanted. The Corpse King exerted some more strength and the strong cold current instantly covered the surrounding rock walls with frost. That slippery vines and moss had already frozen into frost. Long Yunzhan was expressionless as he waved his sword and directly slashed the frost, forcefully pressing it down. The tomb shook once again and a thunderous loud sound was heard. The frost which was sealed in front of the Corpse King's face completely cracked. That long sword had already directly pressed against the Corpse King's face, just a few fingers' distance away. The Corpse King's expression was icy cold as it suddenly stretched out its slender fingers, clamping onto the long sword in front of it. The faint blue light flashed slightly like a current as it wrapped around the Corpse King's fingers. The Corpse King frowned. The electric current seemed to want to injure the palm it had just formed. With a sizzling sound, the electric current became even more intense. The Zombie King did not panic. He held the hilt of his sword with one hand and allowed the electric current to engulf his palm. He waved his hand slightly. It seemed like a casual wave of his hand. Long Yunzhan's tall body was flung away. He flipped a few times in the air and landed 5 or 6 meters away. Long Yunzhan only managed to steady himself after a long while. A mouthful of fresh blood was stuck in his throat and he nearly spat it out. He used his sword to support his own strength and forced himself to stand up. Leader. Ajan. The few of them exclaimed and looked at Long Yunzhan worriedly. Qiao Jin thought about it but was stopped by Long Yunzhan. Ajan. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she felt a stifling feeling in her chest, making it hard for her to breathe. She had been learning by the ghost doctor's side for such a long time. She was also a medicine refiner, so she knew a few things about medicine. She naturally saw through Long Yunzhan's current state. He was wounded by the Corpse King. And the injury wasn't light. If this carried on, the group of them would become the Corpse King's food sooner or later. No one would be able to escape. Long Yunzhan looked at the Corpse King expressionlessly, as his breathing became heavier and heavier. As though he had sensed Yiqing Luo's calling. He raised his eyes and his azure-blue pupils met directly with Yiqing Luo's eyes, which were filled with worry. The corners of his mouth curled up, and a faint smile appeared on his usually cold face, as if he was comforting her. Saying 3 words. Chapter 847. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been struck by something fiercely. She opened her mouth trying to call Long Yunzhan back. Shiju knew the exit to leave the tomb. As long as Long Yunzhan brought his brothers and left with Shiju, perhaps they might be able to survive. But just as she was about to open her mouth, Long Yunzhan had already shifted his gaze and charged towards the Corpse King once again. At the same time, Yiqing Luo felt that scorching feeling in her heart, gushing up again. She instantly lost all her energy. Her entire body went limp as she collapsed. Roar, roar. Shiju worriedly rubbed its head over as it bit Yiqing Luo's collar. Yiqing Luo clutched her heart as her face turned extremely pale. Her eyes seemed like a heavy stone, pressuring her till she had no strength to open them. There seemed to be something in her heart, constantly tearing her heart apart, ripping open her heart and filling it with countless raging flames. This feeling, the moment her profound jade heart shattered, she also felt it. It was as if a ball of raging flames wanted to incinerate her entirely. In the haze, Yiqing Luo seemed to have heard a hurried cry of alarm, as well as Shiju's warning howl. There was a dangerous aura. It was gradually nearing. Although she had lost her profound jade heart. But her powerful perceptive ability still existed. Yiqing Luo's heart pounded wildly as she wanted to open her eyes. But at the next moment, a wave of intense scorching heat wave enveloped her heart instantly. The scorching, uncomfortable feeling made Yiqing Luo's body couldn't help but curl up. She could even clearly feel that her collar had been picked up by Shiju, flipped in midair and landed on Shiju's back. The intense cold wind blew against her cheeks. But it was still unable to extinguish the raging fire in her heart. Lass. In the haze, she heard Old Man Song's voice, calling out to her consciousness continuously. Yiqing Luo responded softly. This is your chance. Old Man Song's voice sounded extremely hazy and fuzzy. Yiqing Luo listened for some time, but only heard a few fragmented words from him. Yiqing Luo forcefully held on to her consciousness, as she organized Old Man Song's words. Lass, don't want to be your companion's burden, don't want your companion to sacrifice to protect you, right? Girl, if you don't wake up, your companions will die at the hands of the Zombie King. None of them will be spared. This old man can only save you. After the last sentence was organized, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly twitched fiercely. His entire body tensed up and his breathing became rapid. No. If the World Group's brothers were all dead, how could she live alone? She was the one who brought the brothers into the tomb of the Ling King. She was the one who brought everyone into danger. If everyone else had died and she was the only one who had survived. What was this? If you don't want to live alone, then work hard to open your eyes. He wanted to open his eyes, but they were as heavy as lead weights. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open them. The more it was like this, the more intense the burning sensation in his heart became. What kind of pain was this? No, it didn't hurt. The flames that were burning his heart didn't cause him any pain. All that was left was the heat that burned his heart. Feel your profound heart, Jade. Call out to your profound heart, Jade. You can definitely do it. This is a chance. The voice became more and more indistinct. By the time Yiqing Luo listened carefully, there was no longer any sound. Profound jade heart? Hadn't her profound jade heart already shattered? And she could still call out to her profound jade heart? Who cares? Old Man Song wouldn't lie to her. Chapter 848. Profound Jade Heart. She needed the profound heart jade. He needed a powerful profound jade heart. She wanted the World Group brothers to survive together with her. This belief was shouted from the bottom of his heart over and over again. His heart, to be more precise. An extremely intense wave of heat suddenly surged from his heart, where the profound jade heart was being nurtured. That wave of heat rushed into her limbs and bones. It was as if he wanted to sweep through every meridian in her body. Yiqing Luo seemed to have sensed a gush of powerful energy surging towards her body continuously. She clenched her fists tightly, and the burning pain on her face gradually faded. Right at this time Shiju's rapidly advancing body paused. Yiqing Luo felt her body being flung out. Soon after there was the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. This fling nearly flung the heat wave out of his body as well. Shijue. Even if Yiqing Luo didn't open her eyes, she could roughly guess. The zombie king had set its target on her. In other words, ever since the 5 corpses died and the zombie king was resurrected, the zombie king's target had always been her. Although Shiju was a low-level mirage beast, it was still a cub after all. Its speed was naturally not as fast as the corpse king. However, after fleeing for a while, it was slapped away by the zombie king on the spot. It was fine. As long as Shiju wasn't fused with the king corpse, there was still time. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Qing Luo. A few hurried voices were approaching. Long Yunzhan and Qiao Jin rushed in front of her. In the face of the zombie king's wave after wave of attacks, they were completely fearless. One by one they constantly consumed their Xian Qi and brandished the weapons in their hands, wanting to leave at least a small wound on the zombie king's body. No matter what, they had to protect Yiqing Luo, who had always been protecting them. The corpse king's pale lips sneered, not taking this group of food seriously at all. His sleeves fluttered and an earth-shattering cold current surged. Numerous cold currents directly pressed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Block it. Protect the vice leader. The mercenaries roared again and again in a deafening voice filled with conviction. These young mercenaries' profound chi rose steadily as all of them stood in front of Yiqing Luo. Bang bang bang, with a few collisions groups of mercenaries were overturned. They crashed into the surrounding rock walls. It caused the entire tomb to shake and it was on the verge of collapsing. The corpse king's scarlet eyes coldly swept over the food, his hoarse voice sharp and ear-piercing. Come. This king will absorb all of you into his body. Those 100 mercenaries who were sent flying onto the ground weren't intimidated by the corpse king at all, as they immediately stood up and pounced forward, trying to help Yiqing Luo to block it. Get out of the way. Her cold voice was somewhat enchanting. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This voice. It was Yiqing Luo. The mercenaries' gazes immediately congealed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The petite body that had been flipped over by the zombie king's cold current was now floating steadily in the air. A bewitching red light enveloped her whole body. Qing Luo. Qiao Jin clutched his chest and suppressed the urge to spit out blood. He raised his head and stared at the woman who had almost crashed into the top of the cliff. Long Yunzhan pressed his sword against the ground and breathed heavily. He placed a hand on Qiao Jin's shoulder and said, "Don't go over. She doesn't have a profound jade heart. How can she still float in the air? What's going on with this red glow? Without a profound jade heart, can she even display her profound qi?" The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries opened their mouths in shock. They stared dumbfoundedly at that lady who had her eyes tightly shut and her jet black hair fluttering in the wind. Chapter 849. Forehead. The mercenary's vision instantly congealed towards Yiqing Luo's forehead. Under the red light, a few patterns faintly appeared on the lady's forehead. Like a pattern outlined by the red flowing light. Flickering, it became more and more eye-catching. Following that, under the flickering light, the pattern on the lady's forehead was completely revealed in front of everyone's eyes. That was a dark pink pattern with a few petals lingering on the center of her forehead, like a blooming cherry blossom. Right. It was cherry blossom. Her forehead didn't have any decals at all. This must have grown out suddenly. What's going on? Don't tell me she's a demon? Otherwise, without a profound heart jade, how could she possibly float in midair? The Azura group's mercenaries had already started to panic as they looked at the lady in midair in terror. That cherry blossom under the red light became more and more obvious. Long Yunzhan and the others were stunned. After being together with Yiqing Luo for such a long time, they had never seen such a pattern on her forehead. Apparently, these patterns had a great relationship with that bewitching red glow on her body. Only Yi Fengyu, after seeing that pattern, his face instantly turned pale, as his eyes faintly flashed with astonishment and disbelief. How could it be? How could it be his sister? Corpse King squinted his scarlet eyes as he gazed at the pattern on Yi Qingluo's forehead for some time as he sneered, "Little lass, don't tell me that you think you can play this little trick and deceive this king? Obediently become a part of this king's body." Saying that, Corpse King's slender fingers turned into ghastly white bones, like a sharp hook as it pressed towards Yi Qingluo. Just at this moment, the red glow on Yi Qingluo's body exploded. That cherry blossom pattern on her forehead was like an excited flame. Yi Qingluo's curly long eyelashes moved as her tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Boom! A loud sound was heard as Corpse King's attacking body fell heavily onto the ground. The sound of bones breaking was ear-piercing like a saw. Pale face, wide-open scarlet eyes, tightly stuck to the ground as those pieces of gravel scratched his skin. No blood flowed out. Just a torn wound revealing the ghastly white bones. This scene made the surrounding mercenaries dumbfounded. What happened? They hadn't even seen Yi Qingluo make a move and the Corpse King had mysteriously fallen onto the ground? The Corpse King on the ground let out a furious roar. He slammed the ground and was about to stand up. A powerful aura instantly broke through the dense cold air in the tomb. A powerful pressure replaced it. The King of Corpses lying on the ground was suppressed to the point that it could not resist at all. "If you want my woman to become a part of your body, you'll have to see if I agree to it first." An extremely dignified voice, mellow like fine wine, lingered in everyone's ears. As the clouds parted, a man in a luxurious purple robe appeared, as if he was riding on an auspicious cloud. His black hair fluttered gracefully on his shoulders like a cloud of smoke. It made his peerless face look even more exquisite and devilish. Especially that pair of peach blossom eyes that were long and narrow like obsidian, they overflowed with a cold light as they moved about, causing one's entire body to tremble with just a glance. He is, it can't be, why is he here? I'm not dreaming, am I? What did he say earlier? Death God mercenaries drew in a breath of cold air, as they stared at that purple-robed man in disbelief. Whereas the World Group's mercenaries all heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he was here, all the problems would no longer be a problem. Chapter 850. His purple robe fluttered and in an instant, the man had already stepped to Yi Qingluo's side. Stretching out his arm, he stably brought the young lady's petite body into his embrace. Ah, Xian. Yi Qingluo was in a daze as she felt a familiar warmth and that calming sandalwood fragrance, slowly lingering around her nose. She couldn't help but took a deep breath as she buried her head in his embrace and shut her eyes. His heart, which was hanging in the air, finally calmed down. In her mind she recalled that scene earlier. It was at that moment just now. The instant the king corpse attacked, Yi Qingluo felt her own profound jade heart's heart was like a raging inferno, surging and rushing over explosively. She could even feel a gush of powerful energy filling her limbs and bones. Just as she opened her eyes and was about to counterattack the Corpse King, Zhou Xian was like a god as he descended from the sky. It was also at that instant that her entire body's energy seemed to be stripped away as she fell from the sky. Right now she had no way to think about where that power came from. She could only wait till they left the tomb before asking Old Man Tsang. "Sorry I'm late." Zhou Xian gently caressed her pale face as his eyes were filled with tenderness. He held her slender waist tightly as the both of them slowly landed on the ground. Zhou Xian stabilized her body. His 5 fingers slowly covered Yi Qingluo's chest. A ball of profound qi was injected into her heart. "I'm not by your side and you kept making me worried." Zhou Xian was helping her to reconstruct her profound jade heart while grumbling at her. It wasn't hard to hear the heavy pampering and tenderness in his words. Luckily he came in time. From afar he sensed the lifting of the seal. Zhou Xian rushed over and outside the tomb. He sensed Yi Qingluo's presence. He knew that the lifting of the seal this time had something to do with Yi Qingluo. Zhou Xian was naturally very clear about the dangers of Ling King's tomb. Based on Yi Qingluo and the rest's ability, it was not enough to leave the tomb alive. Especially when Yi Qingluo's profound jade heart was formed by him. The moment it shattered, he sensed it. Immediately he panicked and rushed into the tomb without caring about anything else. Finally he made it in time. Yiqing Luo leaned lazily in his arms as her eyes were half closed. After her body was filled with profound qi, she had finally regained some strength. My profound jade heart had some strange movements. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and rubbed herself against Zhou Xian's embrace. I thought something had happened to you. Zhou Xian's hand, which was wrapped around her waist, pinched her waist harshly as he rebuked in anger. Who's the one who's in trouble now? Who are you worried about? Yiqing Luo knew that she was in the wrong as she replied in a soft voice. It's my fault. Luckily the Overlord rushed over in time and saved my life. I'm extremely grateful. Only devote yourself to me. Zhou Xian raised his brows, his long and narrow eyes outlined an arc. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red, thinking that other than flirting with her, this man could only flirt with her. As soon as they met, he took liberties with her. One had to know that the current location, background, and atmosphere were not suitable for flirting. The Death God mercenaries were completely dazed. This man dressed in purple robe, although they had never seen him before, but they had absolutely heard of his reputation. Purple robe ring. A face of peerless elegance. Sparkling peach blossom eyes. All of them. Overlord, the legendary master of the Imperial Palace. The world-famous Dizun. He and the World Group's vice group leader were actually in such a relationship. No matter who it was, they could tell that when Zhou Xian looked at Yiqing Luo, his expression was so gentle and pampering. Chapter 851. The king corpse let out a sharp low roar as its hand on the ground gradually turned into white bones. Its scarlet eyes widened as its white bones curled up as it pounded the ground heavily. What are you? How dare you treat this king like this? This king will devour you. The atmosphere was instantly destroyed. Zhou Xian shot a cold glance over as he ridiculed with his rosy thin lips. Based on you? You dare to devour this lord? He scoffed disdainfully as he gazed at the person in his arms. Looking at her pale face, under the formation of the profound jade heart, it gradually regained its color as his expression turned gentle. The king corpse's body instantly froze on the spot. Just one look and it made a dignified king corpse so terrified that it was unable to move. This seemingly young and handsome man actually possessed such powerful strength. There weren't many people who could defeat it 1,000 years ago, not to mention 1,000 years later. The king corpse was terrified and wanted to escape. But its body seemed to be bound by an invisible force. It had no chance to move at all. Hurt my little Luo, causing her profound jade heart to shatter. Little brat, you still want to escape? Zhou Xian chuckled softly as the corners of his eyes curved into a narrow arc. Little brat? The Death God mercenaries' expressions changed as they stared aghast at the king corpse lying on the ground. The world mercenaries' mouths twitched as they stared sympathetically at the king corpse lying on the ground. In Zhou Xian's eyes, the 1,000-year king corpse was just a little brat. In the entire world, probably only Zhou Xian dared to say that. Sure enough, the king corpse's deathly pale face was immediately filled with sullen anger. Its scarlet eyes were like a poisonous snake, filled with humiliation and anger. It formed a sharp contrast with the high spirits just now. Zhou Xian retracted his gaze as he didn't continue to care about the struggling and roaring king corpse. He calmly continued to form the profound jade heart for Yiqing Luo. Time passed by in a blink of an eye. The two mercenaries held their breaths as they waited in rapt attention. Group leader, are you all right? Suddenly, in the crowd, Long Yunzhan's body, which was supporting his sword, swayed slightly and straightened up. Long Yunzhan slowly shook his head, one arm supporting himself against the rock wall, his long eyelashes covering his azure blue eyes. Qiao Jin frowned slightly, feeling that he was a little strange. Just as he was about to call Baiming Lulu to check Long Yunzhan's pulse, he suddenly sensed a powerful profound energy covering the tomb. Everyone's line of sight immediately shifted to the direction where the profound qi had come from. It was Zhou Xian and Yiqing Luo. Zhou Xian's palm that was covering Yiqing Luo's chest flashed a ball of soft fluorescent light and disappeared in a flash. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and clearly sensed a palm-sized jade-shaped qi overflowing from her heart, wrapping around her heart and automatically repairing the injuries caused by the profound jade heart's shattering. Strong profound qi spread throughout Yiqing Luo's limbs and bones at an extremely fast speed. He was finally back. Yiqing Luo clenched her fist, feeling the profound qi rushing into her body as a sweet smile appeared on her lips. She raised her eyes and looked at Zhou Xian with a warm smile, just as she was about to express her thanks. But she heard Zhou Xian staring at his own hand for a long time as he sighed softly and immediately threw out a sentence. It's still a little too small. Yi Qingluo was momentarily dazed as she blinked her eyes, not understanding the meaning behind his words. But seeing Zhou Xian waving his hand which had helped her form the profound jade heart earlier, he clicked his tongue as his eyes were filled with a teasing smile. Yi Qingluo's face flushed red with a whoosh. Damn it! Stinky hooligan. You shouldn't flirt like this when picking up a girl. She lowered her eyes as she stared at her chest.